There has admittedly been a little bit of contention, I think, in the Chaos Zero Nightmare community. There are people that looked at the recent live stream and supported it, and then people that looked at the recent live stream and were very highly deterred, disappointed, and disturbed by it. This has caused a fracture in the community overall, led partly due to some instances of the NTR drama with Owen, some instances of the rewriting and restructuring of the original staff that wrote the core story, and that ultimately led to the drastic change to, I think, beyond Chapter 1. This was addressed directly by the current director himself. I did a video going over kind of like a surface level impression of my thoughts specifically pertaining to some of the AI translated live stream, and I think that I personally neglected to delve deep enough into the reasoning behind the changes, and in so doing, I feel like I did a bit of a disservice to both the community and the original staff members that were affected. My goal with my channel is to lend a voice to the genre, and that's why I intend to dive a little bit deeper here into what happened, and that ultimately led to the changes being necessitated. I am personally of the opinion that maintaining and retaining the core vision of a game is important. I don't think that there should be any real form of outsider interference. I think if the original developers had a story that they wanted to go with, that they should have supported this. I don't think the director should have influenced the game direction at all. And at the same time, I don't think that a game should change their core identity to pander to a specific demographic of player. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you hate the game or the story or whatever. There are plenty of other games out there that could meet your very specific requirements. You could very easily go ahead and play those, but requesting a studio or developers or writers or anyone really to change the identity and the vision they had of their game is just not okay. There have been so many threads going back and forth. I think a lot of one side seems to look at it from the perspective of the director wanting to change the core current identity of the game due to the fact that Korean players are wanting a shift, a focus from a cast of characters as a focus to instead a main character focus. I am of the opinion, the very firm opinion, that a strong main character is a good main character. A main character that is powerful, that is impactful, is a fantastic main character. But at the same time, I don't like a core cast of characters to be one-dimensional and to exist as a direct extension of like a harem. Because we have plenty of games like that. Like Nikke is my favorite gacha game. Arknights, Wuthering Waves. There are plenty of games that I play where the main character is the center of attention and they build a harem of characters, but then there are also games that I play that don't have a harem of characters that I also thoroughly enjoy, because at the end of the day, if the core of the game is built around having a harem, then I'm all for it. But if the core of the game is built around like a story or the gameplay of the game, then I'm all for that as well. So if Chaos Zero Nightmare was built as a harem game, cool. That is awesome. I love collecting hot waifus. But if it was built not as a harem game and instead to include a core cast of characters, then I'm all for that as well, and I don't think that it should be changed to become a harem game. If you think it should be, that's fine. But by that very same train of thought, that very same logic, all the harem games then could also be changed to include a core cast of characters and disregard the main character as like the harem king or queen, catering and pandering to the people that want that, but they shouldn't. They genuinely shouldn't, because that would ruin the game. So I understand where a lot of these people are coming from. I don't want the game to change its identity. I want the game to retain a core cast of characters that are all individual people and that are all friends, forming relationships and bonds with one another, but navigating through numerous different Reddit threads, Twitter threads. Yeah, I know, you saw that. And then the English translated summary that was posted on the on-stove website, it seems like there was more to it, and there is more to it than just changing the focus, the style to cater and pander to people that wanted a harem. I covered the intro where he introduced himself, and then he went on to state the service instability issues on stream and in a separate video, so I'm not really going to bother going into that. I'm going to go into the other parts that I didn't really delve deep enough into. I'd like to address the story-related concerns. To all Protoss who were disappointed and confused by a story that felt different from what you had anticipated, I offer my sincerest apologies. We fully understand how disheartening it must have been to feel like a mere observer when you should have been the protagonist, fully immersed in the world of the game. In particular, I believe the way game characters built deeper bonds with other characters instead of the protagonist was a clear mistake on our part. See, I don't believe that's the case. I believe that building deeper bonds with the protagonist is good, but I feel like building deeper bonds with other characters as well is good because it makes the characters feel more alive, like they have a life and a personality beyond you. And it's great when you are their focus, but you shouldn't be the only focus. It's just not human. Regrettably, I was aware of these narrative issues myself. However, as our pre-registration began in July and the official launch drew near, I became overly focused on keeping our promised release schedule. See, he very could have, if they wanted to change this, they very easily could have. They just could have pushed the game back a few months without issue. In that haste, I failed to ensure the quality of the story. Out of concern that delaying the launch might cause further complications, I made the careless decision to leave certain improvements for post-launch updates. I sincerely apologize for that. I don't know if that's the case. Maybe he decided that this was a necessary change after the backlash he got from Global, which I also want to point out, by the way, or not Global, the backlash he got from Korea, but I also want to point out real quick, the target demographic. I've been told that Global isn't the target demographic, but when you look at the actual revenue for the game, you'll see that Global here, Japan, the US, and several other Western states makes up quite a significant portion of the overall revenue, and that Korea is kind of negligible. They're making changes to the game when the actual region that the game was released in, Korea, makes almost nothing. And then for people that are going to argue they're making these changes so Koreans spend more money on it, when you look at Epic 7's revenue over here, which is their other game, you'll see that 40% of the revenue is from the US, 21% of the downloads are from the US. That is double Korea. When you disregard Korea entirely, which only makes up 22%, you see that a substantial amount of the market is non-Korean. So the 14% here, or 22% there versus 17% over here, is a marginal difference, which is why I personally believe that catering only to Korea might cause some disconnect with global players. And if you cater to Korea and disregard global, as many gacha games and studios have seen in the past, it's not going to go over very well. And when global is predominantly your largest earner, I mean, ignoring us is a recipe for failure. Yo, I don't mean to interrupt the video, but I need to take a moment here to thank all my incredible patrons over on Patreon whose support continues to allow for me to do regular videos like this every single day on this channel. Thank y'all so much, including our YouTube channel members. You guys mean the world to me. So do you guys as viewers as well. Now, without further ado, let's continue. I sincerely apologize for that. As the saying goes, better late than never. We have therefore decided to restructure the main story. Our scenario team has already begun the overhaul with strong passion and a clear determination to improve, and our entire development team is joining to do everything in our power to ensure the world of Chaos Zero Nightmare unfolds as it was truly meant to for you, our Protoss. I mean, that's an admission of wanting to actually improve the game, which I am totally on board for. Meanwhile, the reasons behind the scenario writer's departures have also become a point of controversy. I'm assuming that is because there have been multiple different Reddit threads, tweets that have gone semi-viral, getting thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views that have detailed kind of the state that the original development team was in, such as, and I will point out here that none of these are directly confirmed to my knowledge and are things like rumors, speculation, theories, things that were shared by anonymous sources within the company itself. So while there is no doubt some form of validity to it, how valid it all is remains to be seen. But looking at a lot of these threads, they all have recurring themes. They all state that the game was supposed to be much darker, much more messed up, which I'm totally on board for. I love that theme. It's what I expected the game to be. And that the original developer team was mistreated, and there were a lot of rewrites, a lot of the team quit, and ultimately it led to, I guess, this like power trip from the new director or the new CEO, where he went through and made a lot of alterations to the core game that led to the game essentially becoming the game it is now, with the story it is now, which I still personally enjoy. I don't care if you don't. I still personally enjoy it, but I would totally be on board if it were much darker. It is true that the majority of the scenario team left the studio last year. The reason was none other than my excessive interference, which at the very least he can admit. As the deadline for the final script approached, I grew impatient and made the reckless decision to participate directly in the writing process and push the project forward. So I don't know if that means by participating directly in the writing process. I'm not sure if he means that he directly wrote parts of the game, or if he instead interjected himself into the writing process and was telling people, no, don't do that, go ahead and change that, make this. Either way, he was a direct part of the core writing process, and I guess negatively affected it overall. The scenario writers I worked with were talented individuals, but my excessive ambition and interference ultimately stifled their creativity, which should never ever be done. I've noted this repeatedly. Do not interfere with someone's vision. That environment inevitably led to disappointing results, which weighs heavily on my heart and wallet. The main story was completed under severe time constraints and various limitations. Those who had worked on it have since left the company, and their departure rests entirely on my shoulders. I sincerely apologize once again. And again, like, at the very least, he's openly admitting to fault here, and he is stating where the fault lies. Our new scenario team is currently working on fresh content, including the final part of the epilogue and the trauma code. I'm now collaborating closely with the team, respecting their creative space and striving to maintain a true sense of partnership throughout the process, which is good, because evidently they shouldn't have interfered to begin with, because that did absolutely nothing positive for the game or the team. It's essentially the equivalent of your boss hovering over your shoulder when you're trying to do something and them telling you, no, you're doing it wrong. Allow me to briefly share the key directions for the upcoming main story renewal. And this is where I think a lot of that contention in the community comes from. We'll completely remove the narrative structure that caused the protagonist to feel alienated by surrounding characters. Characters that previously sparked controversy will be revised to prevent the same issues from arising, so they're going to change core characters or narrative structure to appease the Korean players that were upset with parts of it, which, again, like, a lot of your player base is global, so you should also be factoring in the global reception as well. By addressing the existing narrative flaws and reinforcing coherence, the story will be rebuilt around the captain, the sole protagonist within the universe. I'm okay with the captain, the main character, the protagonist here, having a central focus in the story. I love being the focus of the story. I'm also fine if other characters are the focus of the story. It's not a big deal to me as long as the story and the narrative is presented well and told well. I'm fine if they want to make the captain a focal point, but not by making the other characters irrelevant. Otherwise, we end up with an issue that has plagued many other Gacha games over the years, and that is an over-reliance on the main character just standing around aura farming while everyone else just bows and fawns and worships them, which really isn't great storytelling. We also plan to reinforce the darker tone and bleak atmosphere of the narrative, which I appreciate, that's going to be awesome, while deepening both its emotional weight and psychological portrayal of each character, which sounds freaking awesome. The renewal of the main story chapters 1 through 5 will not be limited to text revisions alone. It will include full recordings by the voice actors with the goal of achieving the highest possible quality. That sounds fantastic. As this process requires considerable time to ensure both story refinement and recording quality that our Protoss will truly be satisfied with, we're aiming to complete and release the renewal by the first half of next year. So I think it's a gray area. It's a very slippery slope, because he changed the core identity of the game by interjecting himself directly into the creative process. Now he wants to kind of return it to the kind of game it was, but without the original staff members, so we're still going to run into the same issue of the core identity of the game no longer exists. The new identity for the game might not be the identity or the direction that the South Korean players want either, in which case this entire thing could be for nothing. Because at the end of the day, again, I will stress this, different team, different people, different ideas. But the gray area I see here is I'm in support of it being a darker game. I'm in support of them kind of realigning the game with that darker, more closer to the original narrative style and presentation. But that's only because they changed it from what the core identity originally was. We've also received feedback from our global audience players outside of Korea, which is great, or that's only regarding insufficient localization quality, actually. And that's true. There have been some very noticeable localization issues. Several rounds of revisions to in-game text were deliberated over phrasing and expression, but unfortunately, some of those changes were applied inconsistently. Upon recognizing the issue, we conducted a comprehensive review of our text management system. We're committed to improving localization quality so players from all regions can enjoy the game without ever feeling excluded. We'll take greater responsibility in maintaining translation quality across all languages. What you need to do here is look at the feedback you're receiving from global players and also address global players. Be transparent, because they are being very transparent, and I appreciate that. But you have to look at global players as well, because again, we're the highest spending demographic right now, and not disregard us. Then there was a Q&A held. Why does the captain's loop ability remain in the game? It is true that some of the settings related to the loop were changed partway through development. We spent considerable time deliberating over how best to implement the concept, but ultimately decided to make revisions in pursuit of higher quality. Though the captain's ability is currently described in a simplified way, we regret that we're unable to fully refine its quality toward the end, and its integration into the scenario was not executed as well as intended. In the renewed storyline, we will make every effort to present the captain's abilities and presence as a true protagonist in a more compelling and complete way. And I also want to point out, they did state it's going to take like half a year or halfway through 2026 to release. If they had just delayed the game by half a year, this wouldn't have been an issue. Everything would have been exactly as they wanted. Could you clarify the character shipping issue with the story? There is nothing wrong with having characters have relationships. It genuinely irks me that people are so deterred from playing something just because there might be a relationship. It could be a platonic relationship between a male and a female, or a romantic relationship between a male and a female. Are people so far from reality that they believe that everyone should only worship them? That is just unbelievable. Like, I know some people are gonna hear that and be like, I hate this guy Stix. They're gonna go make Reddit threads. They're gonna go make tweets about it. I just cannot wrap my head around the fact that these are actual human beings. Everyone I know has male and female friends. A lot of the people I know have had a relationship at some point in their life. There's nothing wrong with characters having had past relationships or current relationships. It builds character. There is a level of progression then that the characters have, and I think that's a great way of expressing them. To be completely transparent, both I and the team failed to fully recognize this issue before the main story launched. While the rushed preparation of the main story was certainly an issue, a more critical problem was that the protagonist did not consistently stand at the center of the narrative. Which again, I'm fine if they want to do that. I'm totally on board for having a central main character, or a main character as a more core cast of characters. Instead, other characters often drew the spotlight or carried the story forward, which in turn made related concerns such as character shipping issues far more prominent. Okay, sure. But at the same time, I'm also more than happy to have the story forwarded by other characters as well, and then have the main character be a part of that story, or further parts of the story too. The main character doesn't need to be the one that makes every single decision and forward the story in every capacity. We plan to address interpersonal relationships between non-protagonist characters primarily through external content, so the self-inserts here can just pretend it doesn't exist, such as side stories and 4-panel webtoons. That way people, the self-inserts can be like, well, this didn't happen in my story, so it's not real, and just put up this wall, like, I can't see it, so it's not happening. Oh my god. Yeah. Within the game's main story, interactions between non-protagonist characters will be minimized to ensure the captain remains a central focus. So they've decided interactions between non-protagonist characters will be minimized, which means that character growth, the core cast of characters, it's going to be minimized, and in the future, it may be completely removed. So it's just, hey, that person over there is talking to me, we're in a scene together, and then this person and I are in a scene together. That thing happened between that person and me only. Those people don't express anything because they cannot have these interpersonal relationships with the other characters. So there's going to be like no more friendships, no more bonds, no more relationships at all. Or if there are, they're going to be very minor, because they did state they will be minimized. I don't agree with that, and I think that's a terrible decision. You can make non-protagonist characters still have relationships while not removing the narrative focus from the main character. It is definitely possible to do. The main character could still have all the cool aura farming moments, but not at the expense of the growth and the connections of the other characters. We ask for your continued attention, and we assure you that this commitment will be fully reflected in the forthcoming main story renewal. I mean, as an example here, right? Nikke. There are plenty of characters in Nikke that have relationships, that have stories that are told and woven together beautifully. And I don't know why this is something that they are deciding should not be present in the game. I think, well, actually, no, Snowbreak has a lot of just like central main character focus. Yeah, I think Nikke is probably the only game, like the only really heavily Gunner game that I know and actively play that has the inclusion of the protagonist, but also the inclusion of a core cast of characters that continue to expand repeatedly, that also all have interpersonal relationships handled well. Why were there differences between the Korean and global versions of in-game text? This issue arose simply because different text versions were not properly unified, currently fixing the inconsistency. Okay, that sounds great. Affinity levels are too difficult to raise. They're actually giving out a ton of those cake slices to make that actually easier for players, which is really good if you log in every single day. But they do state here, we've been distributing small rewards via mail. We plan to improve the system, though. That sounds really, really good. Why was the captain sidelined in the story? This was indeed a critical issue, and I sincerely apologize for having overlooked it prior to launch. Through this opportunity, I'd like to ensure you that the upcoming story revisions will address this fully. Which, again, like, that sounds perfectly fine. That sounds good. I'm more than happy having him integrated into the story, but not at the expense of the other characters and making them one-dimensional. Please clarify the documents about the use of AI in character illustration. So I have had some people state that this is happening in the game. I haven't seen it myself, but over 100 people are currently working on the development in our studio. Various internal development information and details about the internal staff are spreading throughout the community, so if AI had actually been used, the truth would inevitably come to light. I want to state clearly that AI was not used in our development process. Okay, I mean, realistically, you can only take him at his word here. Could you explain the monetization model? We're aware that there has been significant dissatisfaction regarding this matter. I've personally reflected on it deeply and have held multiple internal discussions with debates about possible adjustments. Compared to other games, the cost of acquiring characters is approximately 30% low. Actually, I don't think the rates are terrible in this game at all, which we believed would make the process more approachable and player-friendly in the long run. If we find that current model remains insufficient, we plan to offer more rewards to make it easier and more comfortable to obtain characters. And you know what? That's actually what I said about Stellasora. People said that it's really expensive and not very free-to-play friendly. And I was like, you know what they could do? Instead of just like adjusting the gacha rates, they could just increase everything else. All the other rewards, double them to make up for the halved rates. Easy. How will improvements proceed forward? Game improvement also remains our top priority, and we are carefully reviewing and implementing enhancements wherever possible. Why has communication been delayed? I deeply apologize. There have been far too many bugs and problems since launch. Embarrassingly, we prioritized resolving those issues before coming forward. They did express that there were multiple issues though that they did fix, and they're very transparent about that, and I made a video about it. I've made some tweets about it, which was very good. This is another testament to that right here. Although we've been preparing extensively for this session, our development team has been working tirelessly to address these issues, which unfortunately resulted in a delay in our communication. I'd like to express my sincere apologies for not reaching out sooner. We'll make every effort to hold more sessions like this in the future and to respond quickly to your feedback and concerns. During development, I often found myself caught up in managerial concerns and matters unrelated to what truly matters, our Protoss. This experience has been a humbling reminder of where our priorities must lie. At least you can openly admit that. At the very least. These are a lot of great admissions and a lot of great realizations. I do feel like the choices that he made with the original team, though, was a sign of very poor and very bad, obsessive leadership. But I mean, if he's making alterations now, I think that's a great step in the right direction. From today onward, I will turn to the heart of a true developer, dedicating myself solely to creating a game that our Protoss could truly enjoy and be proud of. I'll humbly accept criticism from all Protoss regarding the service instability and especially the story-related issues. However, I'm deeply pained to see the development team, who have trusted and worked with me for up to 4 years leading to the launch, receive such a severe backlash. Since all responsibility lies with me, I ask that you direct your criticism toward me and kindly refrain from extreme criticism of the development team. I mean, again, like, kudos to the guy. This is phenomenally handled. I will not run away from my responsibilities. I promise to correct past mistakes and demonstrate tangible improvements in both the game and our approach. We ask for your patience and understanding as we strive to deliver on these commitments. Okay, you know what? He admitted exactly what all these things are saying. They're all saying that the original team was mishandled, actually. Very, very egregiously. And that's really bad. Like genuinely, it's a terrible thing. It really is. And there have been so many threads, so many that have been opened detailing, you know, all the horrors that went on. And again, like none of this is verifiable. None of it is verified at all. And due to that, I think it's a little disingenuous to claim that any of it is fact beyond the little tidbits of information that we've been able to data mine. And not just that, but also the open admissions from the developer himself. He addressed a lot of the issues that players have, the interference from him, the drastic changes in the core story, and the mishandling of the original developer team and how they all quit. So in a lot of these instances, it's more or less true to some extent. But at the same time, I also believe that taking every bit of information as fact when you can't verify it it leads to misinformation, being misinformed and misconstruing things. And at the end of the day, I think this could be a good direction to take given the drastic departure from what the game originally was. So from my perspective, I said I didn't want this to change the narrative focus from a core cast of characters to a single character, the protagonist, because I like the fact that there were more characters here breathing life into the game and all interacting with one another. But at the same time, like if that was not their original intention, if that was not the direction that the original team wanted to go, then that's perfectly fine. I am fine having this as a harem game if that was the vision the original team had. If it was not the original vision the team had, and the original team wanted a core cast of characters that the protagonist was a part of, then I'm completely against having it become a harem game. But at the end of the day here, I don't think we'll ever really truly know unless those members come out and discuss it personally. I haven't really found anything from them stating whether or not that was the case. So all I can do is speculate. All I can do is comment on the information that has been presented across all these different community posts, tweets, Reddit threads. I think the game is phenomenal. It's the best gacha game release of 2025, hands down, no contest. And I mean, Global has received it very well. There have been some discrepancies with the story, some differences of opinions relating to the story, but ultimately, the game has been praised by Global. And the fact that we make up a large chunk of the total revenue is a testament to how well received Global, or how well it has been received globally. I hope that any changes they make are with global players in mind and not just to cater to a portion of the players that are being loud and that are trying to force them to do something that the team doesn't want to do or that the rest of the world doesn't want to do. Because while there are lots of threads that are derailing the CEO, the director, that are criticizing him, there are also plenty of Reddit threads that are stating the complete opposite, like this: don't trust any news from Korea. I'm from Korea and I show you guys suffering from Korean incels. All the incels are criticizing the game with fake news. These news are not just exaggerating facts or misinterpreting them. They're running a fake news factory to kill Chaos Zero Nightmare. So at the end of the day, I don't think there's any pleasing, like fully pleasing both sides. I think all they can do is make a good game, and that is all I want. At the end of the day, that is genuinely all that I need for a game to be good. Whether it's a harem game, whether it's a large community game, whether it's action combat, narrative focused, open world, it doesn't matter. A good game to me is a good game, and I will enjoy it as long as I am engaged with it. And at the end of the day, I hope these studios don't destroy their games listening to a fraction of their community. Because, I mean, evidently, you look at the ratings for the game, you look at the revenue for the game, it's doing double what Stellasora did, and it's been released a shorter time. It has made millions of dollars. It's rated like 4.7, 4.8 all across the world on the Play stores. People love the game. Making a drastic change to it might change their perception of the game. That's not what we want. But hopefully this elaborated a little bit, showed a little bit more of what was going on behind the scenes. And I appreciate the fact here that the director, the CEO himself, decided he was, well, I don't even know if this is, yeah, okay, CEO of Super Creative and the director of Chaos Zero Nightmare. So I appreciate the fact that the CEO here and the director himself came out and took full accountability, because, I mean, he needed to. I know you think that you just hit the end of the video, and technically, yeah, you have. And I know your first reaction is to close out of it at this juncture, but don't. No, instead, I urge you to take a moment here and click one of the videos on screen that are coming up in just a moment so you remain up to date with everything going on in the gacha genre. Trust me, you're not going to regret doing so. Stay flaccid.